Welcome back, everybody, to the Behind the Brand podcast. My name is Curtis, and of course, I'm the host. And today we have a fantastic new guest with us. We have April McMillan,
Hello.
a voiceover artist. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming, especially because you've travelled a good few fair miles to get here, to be fair. But we can tell the people that anyway. So, yeah, welcome to Behind the Brand podcast. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you
looking
for
forward to hearing everything that you do. Obviously, a voiceover artist, which is something that we haven't had on the podcast before.
Oh, good.
As well.
Something different, yeah.
Yeah, I know people probably listen to this going, isn't this like voiceover sort of stuff? But we'll dig into the nitty gritty.
Not quite, no.
Exactly. So we'll
That
dig
is
into the nitty gritty when people get to know you a wee bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So what we tend to do is basically get the guest to introduce himself. Give us a wee backstory, how you got involved in the business, and then we can dig a wee bit deeper in. Would you mind just introducing yourself to the
Yeah, no
listeners?
problem. So I'm April. I'm originally from Ayrshire, but I don't live in Scotland now. I live in Spain. So
Lucky for some.
so I've lived in Spain for 12 years. Moved over there 2012. I was actually originally a dancer. I was a professional dancer. That's what I've always done. That's what I'm trained in. So 2012, moved over to Spain for a job. Got a contract in it's like a dinner show, a cabaret venue. Never really came back. So met my husband over there, settled down. We've got 2 kids. Worked, danced. Obviously, it was Benidorm area that I moved to. So loads of entertainment jobs over there. You've got loads of singers, loads of dancers. Was never short of work. But obviously dancing is a job you can't do forever. So
creeps up when you do it.
I was creeping up to 30 and I was like, oh, time to think of a new job. For some reason, don't ask me why, I just had a bee in my bonnet when it came to getting a new job. I wanted it to be in the entertainment industry. I don't know why. I suppose it's all I've ever known.
Yep.
And I didn't want to do something completely random. So
I'm a bit like you as well. Like, I been through a singer and things like that to then go and do like office jobs and things, and I'm just like, it's not my passion. It's not the passion.
It's not us. It's either you or it's not, and nothing against it. Obviously, some people are born for that, but you either are or you aren't.
That's it.
So tried a few different things. I did a lot of extra work. You know, your extras like supporting artists.
Oh, right, okay.
Filming work, wee bits of modelling, teaching kids ballet classes, like anything to stay in this industry. I even had a wee dance shop at one point. I sold ballet shoes and all that, like online. But these were all just sort of like side hustles, and nothing much ever came of it. It wasn't like a steady income. And then one day I met one of the mums at school, an English girl over in Spain. She also used to be a dancer as well, funnily enough. Lovely girl, Nikki. And she told me that she did voiceover, and I was like, oh. And I remembered, because when I went to college, when I went to Performing Arts College, they said anyone with an accent, whether you're Scottish, Irish, whatever, you should get a voice reel. That's something that you can always do. Right. And I was interested in that, and I've always been interested in it, but one of those things you never...
Back of the mind sort of thing.
Well, when you graduate college, you've got your professional headshots, you need a show reel, you might need a singing reel, an acting reel. There's enough to be doing, you know. Never got round to it. So
much involved with what you need to do, kind of succeed in this business.
That's
before
right.
you even get in.
Well, that's before you're travelling to auditions to London every day and all that.
Oh, God.
So I was like, oh, voiceover. Brilliant. And I asked her if she would mind to sit down with me, and she was so kind. I owe it all to Nikki, really. She told me everything I know. I wasn't really any competition to her as such, because she's English. She's got a lovely, lovely accent. She's actually from Cambridge, like a right sexy, posh accent. Okay. So I wasn't exactly coming for her work with my wee Ayrshire accent, you know. So she was really kind. She was really good to me, Nikki. She taught me everything. And that was how I got into it. So that was 2020. I bought all the gear, looked into it all, got my microphone and everything, and got my first few jobs. This was right at the start of 2020, kind of January, February. So you know what I'm going to say?
Oh, God.
Don't you think every single not just your podcast, every podcast ever, and then COVID hit?
I think it sparked something in everybody to start something like this as well.
It has. I was going to say mine's actually a positive story, which I'm really happy to say, because there's a lot that aren't, you know. I'm not rubbing it in, because I know it was a horrible time, but it just blew up. The voiceover industry just blew up. There was so much content needed and content getting pumped out. Even so, big industries like the NHS, there was all your explainer videos, how to track and trace, how to do a test.
That's right.
Health and safety. All the businesses had health and safety videos for all their staff and training videos. Then all the companies and businesses were changing, for example, their voicemail and their telephone systems. Due to the current situation, we are currently closed. However, in an emergency, you can contact us on, so all that.
It's amazing how you just changed though. Like, although it's your
It's
voice,
weird,
like,
I know.
it's like listening to Siri or something like that.
It's my telephone voice, yeah.
Brilliant.
And then not to mention, everybody started a podcast.
Yep,
they all
that's
needed
right.
intros. Everybody started.
That's how this started. Yep.
Everybody started a YouTube channel, radio stations popping up, and it was just brilliant. So yeah, that really catapulted me, and luckily it's my full-time job now, so that's brilliant.
It's amazing though. It's amazing to like hear somebody doing like voiceover sort of stuff. I've always had a keen interest in it. It's just something that interests me. I've worked for like local radio stations and things like that. So it's always interested me, that sort of idea. Never been on like the air or anything like that. But as I say, I've got a singing background. So I've always been intrigued in the recording sort of process and stuff. And you know what it is, like you network with people and stuff like that, and you're always just like, how the hell does somebody get into that?
I know, it's a job
that do it?
People don't even really, it's something you don't think about if you're not that in that industry. So people will say, a voiceover, like what for? But really, if you think about it, I'm like, right, in your car, your radio adverts, your Spotify adverts, your TV adverts when you go home, even the shops. I noticed yesterday, because I'm always listening, like Superdrug's got a voiceover constantly about the offers, and or not just Superdrug, whatever shop you're in. The train, the next stop will be Paisley Gilmore Street.
Well, that's funny. That's right. Remember there was the whole big thing with Tesco. And I don't know if you've seen it, they were doing a big promotion thing for the new checkout voice or whatever it was as well.
Oh no,
there was a whole big thing.
What were they casting someone?
They were casting, but they basically put it out in like an open invitation or something like that. It was, I think, on TikTok possibly. TikTok or something like that, or Instagram.
Oh, how would it gone for that?
I know. Well, I think a guy got it, if I'm right. But he was just a guy that happened to. I don't think he was a voiceover artist by any means a stretch. Right. And he just put up his audition, and then lo and behold, he's the new voice of the checkout in Tesco. So cool. I'm like, it's amazing. But you're right, there's just so much opportunities there for voiceover sort of thing to go in as well, like all these different adverts. And I didn't see, when you put it in perspective, I didn't think like the train and stuff like that. You forget that someone needs to do that. You forget all these adverts as well, especially during COVID, the whole COVID thing as well. Because I worked for a social, I worked for I worked for a company, and I was doing social media for them at the time, and it was so hard to come up with content because you couldn't go anywhere to film anything. So everything did have to be like voiced over and stuff like that. But then you try to put it with like stock images and stock like B-roll and things. It's just like, it was
and you don't want
horrendous.
The same voice all the time. You'd rather mix it up. But it's
amazing. Just so you currently record everything where you are then?
Yeah, at home.
So you can pretty much do it remotely anywhere?
Well, you say remotely. Obviously you need a studio, which is one thing that bugs me. I would love to, I see all over Instagram, see these like business girls who go and work from a cafe. I would love to sit in a cafe, but there's only so much I can do because I can't record in the cafe. I can do all my admin bits. I sit there and do my invoices and stuff. So I work from home. I've got a studio in my spare room down in the basement, and I've got it all like acoustically treated. We've got all the panels on the wall and everything. I don't mind that. Some people understand that would be their worst nightmare. They don't want to work from home. I like it. I love it.
Is your kids like young as well? Are they?
No, they're in school all day.
They're that's good. Then
8 and 9 they are. So
you have peace and quiet then to get it done.
Yeah. That's one thing I would say about freelancing, or that style of freelancing where you can work from anywhere, for mums or dads. Absolutely ideal, because you kind of work not when you want. You need to get your work done, but you can work out your own times. So both school runs, like everything's just a yes. I can do both school runs, doctor's appointment, yes, any day, any time. Dentist appointments, all their different sports, whatever it is.
It's ideal.
It just takes a bit of a load off to not have to stress about that, because I've got friends obviously that work normal jobs and it's a total stress. Oh, how am I going to do that? So that's lovely. How are you going to fit
it in your schedule?
It's great. I'm really grateful for that.
So you obviously you're your own boss as well at the end of the day.
More or less, yeah. It's just funny. I've just been desperate to go over to Scotland though, because it's a funny job. So obviously all my work's online, and as you say, you can work from anywhere. But my USB, if you want to call it that, or my niche is Scotland. I'm a Scottish voiceover artist, and I never get to hear any of my work. So like my mum sent me a wee video on WhatsApp the other day. She was like, "Is this? I'm in the car. Is this you on Smooth Radio?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And because all these things are regional, so all your obviously radio ads, TV ads, but also your YouTube ads and your Spotify ads are all regional, like local. So I get all the Spanish ones, and you do this work and you'd love to hear it, and
you just don't get to hear it unless somebody actually sends you.
That's right. My friends, I've got Scottish friends that live in Spain, and when they come home to see their family, they're like, "You're on the telly." It's
different though, I must say, like probably from your perspective, like recording it and listening it back to actually hearing it when it goes live.
Oh,
like on the radio,
it's
the
all
TV,
edited,
things like that. Yeah.
they've added their music and everything. Yeah,
You actually see the full thing come together, whereas you just record like those wee parts.
Yeah,
I've done that before. I've had to record certain parts and then send it to somebody, and then you wait till like the final product comes out, and you're like, oh, that's the way it sounded. Do you know what I mean? That's for like singing wise, but I'm like, for you, obviously, you'll be involved in probably certain stuff you've done. Like I was looking at most of your stuff. You've worked with quite a big, like a range of big companies and stuff like that as well, which is absolutely fantastic as well. One of the biggest Papa John's and things like that I'd seen, obviously, the Scotto and things like that as well.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I like to do my research and things like that, but
they brought out a new one the other day, the Scotto. They're funny, those adverts. They're dead cheesy, aren't they? I love it.
Oh, they are. But you're right, it's always like YouTube and things. I love watching YouTube, and I love watching like people create content and things like that. So I always see like these adverts, and I've probably heard your voice so many times.
You might notice it now.
See it. I notice it. I'll be like, that's April.
But as we were saying before as well, before we came on camera, I think Scotland seems to be brilliant for networking. There's so many events that you can go to, and I see them advertised all the time, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could go to that. So I do want to make a keen effort to come over, because it's not that there's nothing like that in Spain. There is the odd thing like that, but first of all, it'd probably be Spanish. If it was British, because there's lots of British businesses there, they don't want a Scottish voice though. I do actually do a lot of work in an English accent. I can do an English accent, but then it's, do you know when you go to these networking events, because I did go to one in Spain, and you all had to stand in a big circle and stand up and say, hi, I'm April and I do this. So I had to do it all, and then I had to say, oh, and by the way, I know I'm Scottish, but I can do an English. Oh, that just doesn't work, you know. Whereas I can get here. The thing with voiceover is as well, I feel lucky that more or less every business needs a voiceover at some point, whether that's your telephone or your adverts. So I could go to any random event. So if it's the beauty industry, brilliant, love to work with them. But also I could go to an event full of like estate agents. They need voiceovers too. So
I'm actually working with a couple of companies and stuff, and they're very much in the sense that they don't want to be on camera speaking. Like they just want to have like the B-roll going by, and then like you need their voiceover, but they're like, I don't want it to be my voice. We're like, well, that's when you need people like yourself to come and step in.
It's getting in the right rooms and meeting the right people. So I'm here this weekend, and I'm hoping to do it a bit more often, get over and meet some clients.
Yeah,
it's just funny as well when you've got regular clients that book you over and over again, and it's all very digital. I've never met these people. It's weird.
Hopefully this will be good though, to actually put like, you know what I mean, your face to a name, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those ones where you're like, you're right, I never met the people, but then you're like, oh, I'm actually here. I'm a real life person. I'm not like AI or anything.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's amazing. It's just, I'd like to take it back to kind of the start of how you actually get involved in it. So as much as you're saying like creating reels and things like that, people probably don't understand what that is, especially if they're looking to it. And I'm more talking about somebody that's maybe wanting to get into voiceover. There is a lot of research to be done if you were wanting to get into it. I think it's different maybe when you come from the entertainment industry as well, and you've at least, like I've done a lot of voice work, I've done a lot of singing lessons and acting, and you've got your posture and your diaphragm work and all that. I'm not saying that you can't do it. Obviously there's plenty of famous voiceover artists that have never done any of that. There would be an awful lot of research you would need to go into. You need to make sure you've got the right gear, not a cheap microphone. You need to know where to get work from, how to approach an agent. So I think that's it. Like, when you're saying creating a reel, so for those listening, it's when you create, like, you'll probably know how to explain it better than I will, but it's obviously what I was meaning was you wouldn't have had any projects lined up or anything recorded. Did you have to come up with certain advert type things to basically showcase what you're capable of doing?
That's right. So you don't have to worry about, it doesn't have to be work that you've already done, because obviously if you've never done any, you can't put a reel together. There's actually websites online that you can find scripts specifically for that, or you can you could maybe write one. So say there's a BMW advert that you really like, you can change the brand name and make one up, Ayrshire Cars or whatever, and change it a little bit so you're not completely copying it. And then you just, in your show reel, it'll be up to a minute long. You just want to show a few different styles. So there'd be like a salesy one, maybe a slow one. You could do a more sensual one, and then your telephone, a more business corporate style. Just try and get little short snippets of all these different styles within a minute, so that when you're sending it to clients, they can see. You wouldn't want it to be like a minute advert of just one style of voice.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like, it's obviously showcasing what you're capable of doing and stuff. And would you recommend people to try it in different kind of like we're saying accents and things like that, so that they get used to doing that? Because like that, do you think you're put at a disadvantage because you're Scottish?
No, not necessarily. It depends how you look at it. Disadvantage as in, if you look at the world as a whole, it's not really that many people looking for a Scottish accent. So my friend Nikki, she does amazing because she's got a standard British accent. But I don't see it as a downfall, because at the same time, I'm just determined to crack the industry. Like, Scotland is such a small country. It really is. Can't be that many people doing it. So if you look at it that way, you've got a bigger chance of getting the Scottish work because there's not many people doing it. So I don't see it as a downfall, because as much as the world as a whole would rather have a British accent or an American accent, but there's so many thousands of people doing it.
Yep.
I wouldn't say there's thousands of Scottish people doing it. So no,
You're the first one I've met personally that actually does it.
Right.
As I say, I've got friends and stuff that do radio, but they don't do like radio adverts as such. They're more just presenters.
They're the actual presenter.
It's nice to actually meet somebody that actually does the voiceover sort of stuff, because you hear it every day. I know that you say more. You don't realise it. And now I'm like, right, now I'm actually meeting somebody that actually has their foot in the door with it as well. Because everybody I know, like actors and things like that, are like, I'd love to get in there. Because voiceover and voice acting, two different things, would you say?
Ever so slightly. No, I think it's just a different word to use for it. Obviously, when you're doing character work, that's more acting. If you're doing games, they're fun to do. You know, like you're gaming, they can be funny, and that's a lot more. And they'll give you like a specific character to get into. That's something that might be hard when you're asking about people getting into voiceover. If you've never done it before, any type of acting, you might, I don't know, just find it cringy or whatever. Not necessarily a big personality, you might love it. Like my husband, he's not Scottish, he's actually from Bulgaria, and when he saw how well it was going, he was like, could I not do a Bulgarian one? I was like, absolutely, another small country, get in there. But it's just not him. He's a big quiet guy, and he's like, oh, I could never.
I think you must need a personality when you're going to do this sort of stuff, like,
yeah, or at least be able to put it on, and it's just not him. So
how did you know your voice was right for doing it though? When you did it, did you think
you
that's...
don't know, do you? You just have to give it a go. You were either going to get the jobs or you weren't. Thankfully, it worked out.
It's just one of those ones. Could you imagine you did it and they're like, what's going on here? But you do have such a nice like voice and stuff. As I say, I've listened to your stuff as well, and you obviously gave the people a nice wee kind of freebie there for doing that. So I appreciate that. Let's talk about some of the kind of companies and stuff that you work for, because you also do a range of sort of ones. Are you allowed to mention any sort of names that you've worked for?
More or less, yeah. Some of the bigger ones. It's a funny thing. It's just different every single day. So it ranges from your telephone messages, like I said, radio adverts, TV adverts, Spotify adverts, and then I actually do a lot of work for podcasters. All the podcasters need an intro and an outro, and like your wee segments in between, jingles and things like that. And it's all over. I do quite a lot of work in an English accent, which I'm trying to get out of because I just want to focus on Scottish. But obviously you just take the work that comes.
Of course.
Some of the bigger ones, my first big one was the one that you mentioned, the Papa John's for Sky Sports.
Massive company, man.
Excited when that came in. Massive.
So that played over Sky Sports then?
Yes, it was regional, and it was only for a few weeks. It was while one of the, I'm not into football, one of the big tournaments was on or whatever.
Right, okay. Probably Euros or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was a few years ago. That was 2021. My biggest one lately was Emirates. I can't believe that.
Oh my god!
Emirates
we just booked our first Emirates flight. I'm so looking forward to it.
Oh, I've never been on one. It looks gorgeous, doesn't it?
Well, we were saying that as well because we've currently just booked economy, but we're trying to upgrade.
I know, but don't you think even the economy on Emirates is?
Oh, it looks fantastic.
It's not Ryanair.
Everybody, I know. We just flew EasyJet there.
Tragic.
And you're like, they're sitting on the thing as well.
I know.
But I am really looking forward to it. But Emirates, that's class.
Yeah, well, I was really, really happy. So it was Emirates were celebrating 20 years of flying Glasgow to Dubai. That's what the advert was for. That was my mum found the other day.
Is that what
He's like, that's you? Smooth Radio. So that was a good one. Oh God, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to think what other big ones. A lot of local companies as well. They're not always.
I think it's a mix you do. It's a mixed bag of companies that you work for.
Sometimes I work for big companies, but it's not content you would ever see. So I do a lot of work for the NHS and for the Scottish Government.
Is that like in-house for training purposes and things like that? Police
Scotland as well. It's either in-house for training purposes, or I do quite a lot of work for, it's actually sign language videos. So any information that's put out there from the Scottish Government or from the NHS, they also make a sign language video of it, and they have a voiceover in the background. I take it just so it's not just a completely silent video of someone doing the sign language. So they all get voiced, and they're long videos. They take a long time to do. Audio books. Do them? Yeah, it's a huge range.
Audiobooks. I love audiobooks.
Do you? Do you listen to them? I've
had a couple in the past, to be fair. Yeah, I would rather listen to an audio thing now than
read it.
Read it. Yeah, definitely. As much as I love my Kindle, I'd love to. I prefer an audio style.
They're hard work to do. That's a lot of work that goes into them.
I was going to say, so do you record, edit, and then like do everything yourself?
I
do you
don't
work with a team? No,
I don't edit the audiobooks. That's far too much work.
Is that just like a raw sort of recording that you would send?
I try and mark all the mistakes, and I'll try and take as many mistakes out as I can. But as far as editing it to get, because you've got standard settings that you need, it needs to be just right for Audible, Amazon. I just send that to someone else to do that.
I'd let them do it.
The same with any radio adverts that have to be done on my side. I've got a guy that I send them to. He does all that, so I just do the voice.
That's great. That's perfect.
That takes.
Allows you more time though to do the other parts of the job.
That's right. Yeah, you're not worried about it. It
stress.
takes a long time. Well, I say it takes a long time. It does if you don't know what you're doing. If that's not your bag, so I'd rather just pay someone to do it nicely for me.
100%. Again, that's the best part about managing yourself, and you know what you can manage at the end of the day, and you're like,
it's great.
And I've always said this to people as well, because there's a lot of people that when I'm talking about this sort of thing with podcasting as well, I'm like, there's people out there that have the expertise on it, so give them, you know what I mean, give them a place, you know what I mean, to let them help you. I would rather work with people and help them than see somebody sit and struggle.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Rather than sitting there going, I don't know what I'm doing. Because I've tried to say, like, as much as like go on, create your own podcast, 100%, and do your own voiceover stuff like that as well. But just remember, there's companies like myself that exist.
There is, yeah.
To go and do it as well. And there's nothing like a partnership. I mean, that must benefit you as well, being able just to record the content that you need and then send it to somebody else.
Yeah, collaboration. It's all about that. Yeah.
And it's always the big thing as well, especially small businesses as well. We try and say collaboration is key when it comes to it, and you'll grow with somebody else as well. It's amazing just to hear, and obviously, like, and it's what you do, like, it is such a individual thing, like, you know what I mean?
It's so unusual, yeah.
It is as well, like, it's mental to hear. What's some of the favourite things that you've done? Do you think with voiceover?
My favourite jobs that I've done.
Yeah, well, not even jobs, just like your favourite part about the job. I mean, you can say about jobs that you've done, but or companies you work with.
Part of the job.
Yeah, just everything that you get to do.
It's just, that's a hard question. What's my favourite part about the job? I've probably seen the finished product or hearing the finished product, because you know a lot goes into it. It's a lot of work.
Yep.
And finally hearing the finished product, which I don't get to do a lot, as I said, because I'm not over in Scotland.
I was going to say, you're just recording it and then sending it away.
It's funny, you just send it off into the wild and then like never really hear from them again. And it's obviously a buzz when a client's happy with your work. Big buzz when they come back to you.
Yep.
Repeat clients, because then you know you've done it right. Sometimes people can say thank you very much and you never really know, but if they come back then you know you've done it well. So no, there's not an awful lot of meeting other people. That's one thing I'd like to do a bit more. I'm very much sitting in a room smaller than this all day chatting away to myself. That doesn't bother me too much. I know for some people they're like, no, I need to get out of this house. I kind of love it. I'm a bit of a hermit, but it would be nice to collaborate, like you said, meet some more Scottish businesses and collaborate. Yeah. And
do you currently work with an agent as well when you're going to put it out? So I'm just wondering if you do it all kind of solo as well.
A bit of both. So I've got a few agents that they send work through or send auditions through, and then also there's some freelancing websites especially for voiceover online, and you sort of set up a profile and people can hear all your samples and they come to you.
Have you got any you would recommend for people kind of looking at that sort of thing? No, you don't want to give too much away, but I'm just like, I know ones like Fiverr and things like that exist.
Yeah, there's some.
I more use them for like graphics sort of things.
And things, that's right. Yeah, there's a few that you've got. Bunny Studio that I use quite a lot. Voices 123, voices.com. There's all sorts, but you know, it's only interesting to people if they're interested in that. I don't want to go on and on about it. Yeah. So
it's just obviously for somebody listening, you might inspire. You never know. You might inspire the next person to be like, you know what I mean? It's nice to hear like there's a success story in voiceovers.
Yeah. You can do your own marketing as well. It's a lot of just emailing and marketing yourself on your social media as well, getting all your work out there so people can see it and hear it and hopefully get yourself some more. And
what kind of platforms do you use for like promoting your own stuff? Like you can obviously punt your own social medias and things like what is it you would use?
Instagram. I'm April G VO on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. That's about it for now. LinkedIn's great, isn't it? I've got into that recently.
I know I was going to ask you a wee bit more LinkedIn because that is business to business as well. So is that something that you've kind of put your eyes to?
Yeah, I've started looking into that a lot more. So for me, for example, you don't want to stalk people, but if I looked into video producers, video creators, they're the type of people that are always looking for a voice. So
Well,
I can
that's right,
Scottish ones, and as I say, I don't
it's
like
that
to stalk
partnership
people
as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thing is, you've got to do that research. We'll not call it stalking, we'll call it research.
Research.
You know that baby reindeer sort of style.
I need to watch. I've not watched
have
it.
you not watched it?
No.
I'm not talking anymore
Heard all
about it.
about
Oh
it.
my word, you
That's
need to
on
watch
my
it.
list.
You need to.
I heard she was on an interview and she denied the whole thing, but they were like, "Well, we've got the details
the
here.
proof,
It definitely
I've not watched the interview yet. It's Piers Morgan, but I've not watched it yet. But it looks brutal. Looks brutal. Would you get into voiceover like acting sort of ideas? Would you like to do that in the future? Like
Acting or
just like TV, like say if they were looking for like obviously animation, massive film and stuff like that. Would you look at doing
the
that?
voiceover?
Yeah, just
absolutely,
like that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I always think that even watching kids movies or whatever, there usually is always a wee Scottish character somewhere, and I'm like,
I think you'd be great for like your voice and stuff. You'd be great at like a children's program. 100%.
I've done a few gaming jobs that have been different characters. I actually quite like doing, like a regal queen, and it's like my child, like that. I quite like doing that, because otherwise, if I do like a wee squeaky one, I kind of cringe when I listen back to it. But anyway, it's not what I think. Anyway, it's I would still take the job.
What kind of games that you've done? That's quite interesting. That's
not any known ones, I don't think. I don't remember the names. I've done a few. They're funny to do. What I don't like about games is, so you'll get your scripts and it's a big list of little lines, and that's fine. It's usually sort of action, and it'll be like, let's do this, let's go.
Do you find yourself recording like so many of the same line over and over again?
And they'll actually ask for different takes. Can you do 5 different takes of this line to go and, are we ready, guys? All this. Anyway, so that's your long list. And then at the bottom, and it'll be like, and can you just give us some noises like you're in pain?
Like,
that exactly
stuff,
that.
I'm a big fan of like, I'm going to out myself here. I'm a big fan of anime, right? I absolutely love it to pieces. And I've watched a couple of the guys in the booth and stuff like that, and they're like screaming, and then they're like, as if they're getting stabbed in the heart. And
and you kind of have to act it out.
You have to become that character.
To get into it, yeah. Oh no, I just cringe at myself. Don't ask me. I'm locked in my basement, like no one can hear me. My next door neighbours, I'm like, what if they could?
I can imagine. Oh my God, what's happening over that house?
I know.
But they must see you coming out every day and be like, oh, she's fine.
I don't think my next door neighbours, oh, she's fine. Oh no, she's all right. She's fine. She's fine. I don't know if they know what I do. I don't suppose they do. I've never told them. No, I hope they don't hear me. So they'll say, right, give us 5 versions of you screaming like you're in pain. Give us 5 versions of victory screams like, yeah.
You just don't realise how much goes in behind all that sort of stuff.
I know. And I love it. I do like doing the anime stuff. It's just the noises I'm not a big fan of. The scripts are fine. Maybe when I do it more.
Lines are fine, just get somebody else to do the grunts and stuff like that. I can imagine it, especially about like, as I say, like animation sort of stuff. There's
Somebody
so much that you have to go through.
Squeak like a cat recently. Screech like a cat.
Screech like a cat, right?
No idea. In the middle of a legit script, it was nothing dodgy, and it was an action one. All these action lines. I was a soldier or something, and could you also just screech like a cat as best as you can? Cool.
Yeah, hold on, I'll just bring my cat.
You're the boss.
Squish it. Get the screech that you need. It is all those wee bits, but do you find that obviously when you do all that sort of stuff, is there ever something inside just so when I've done a job in the past where I've actually been on like the television and stuff like that, right? And I've went down and it's been a long day and I've recorded my part and then it gets cut. Do you get angry when that happens?
Yeah. Not angry, but it's a proper, it is a dagger to the heart, yeah. That happened to me recently. I found an advert. I'd been looking everywhere for this online advert that I'd done. I was like, I've not seen it anywhere. And I eventually found it and it had a man's voice on it.
Oh no.
That doesn't hurt as much because it'd be worse if they put another girl's voice, no?
Well, that's true. That's true.
You just went with a man and that's fine. And you know yourself in acting or singing, that's the name of the game. It happens constantly. Yeah. It's not been too bad with voice acting. But yeah, it's not nice.
There was a TV show I worked on, and it was.
Did they cut your scene?
They cut it twice. So I did 1 year, and they cut my whole interview.
You're joking.
And in the second year, they cut the same interview. I was like, oh, for God's sake! So what's the point of me being here?
You still get paid, but it doesn't make it feel any better.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Because then you're like that to everybody. Oh, make sure you watch it. This is me, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go watch it, and you're like,
where were you?
Because they don't tell you.
That was quick. I didn't see you.
I know.
No, but one thing I would say that's helped me with that is listening to podcasts with other voiceovers on it, because they talk about that constantly, and it's nice to hear them saying things that I've experienced that I've never spoken to anyone. So they'll say, so the way that we do a lot of our work is it's actually live directed. So you'll go on either Zoom or, have you heard of Source Connect? You know what that is?
I don't think so, but
No.
I get what you're
Source
you're
Connect
meaning,
is where you'd have an engineer on the call and they do the recording. So I'm not recording, I'm speaking into my mic, but I'm not doing any recording. They're doing that there. So anyway, you go on these calls and there can be, I mean, I've heard horror stories when there's like 20, 30 odd people on the call. Usually it's about 5-6 people. Yep. So you've got the client, say it's Marks and Spencer's, you've got someone from Marks and Spencer's or two, and then you've got your technician, you've got me, you might have a director, and they'll say, you'll do exactly what they've asked you to do, and then they'll say the opposite. So they'll have asked for high energy, and you go in and you do high energy, and they're like, bit too enthusiastic, tone it down a bit. So then you tone it down a bit, and they're like, can you put a bit more of a smile in your voice? And you're just like, like, I can go on. Anyway, listening to these podcasts and hearing other people say that, I'm like, yes, it's not just me. I'm not a complete failure. I was going to say that actually to anyone in business, just in general. I think listening to podcasts, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on one right now, it's absolutely brilliant just to ease your mind sometimes, and just to let you know that you're not alone in the things people go through. It's not like you want to rebel in other people's downfalls, but it happened to me recently. So I kind of messed up. I was doing a big job, and it took me all week. It took me hours and hours. And basically I just hadn't factored in properly the editing, how much the editing was going to cost me. And I worked it out. The guy gave me his price, and I was like, no, this was going to take like hundreds. His cut was going to take a couple of hundred out of me. And I was like, no. And it was the most stressful day. And I was out with my family, and I was on my phone all day trying to sort this, trying to get prices from other people. Just, you know, when your heart's like, I couldn't enjoy my day basically. However, then I remembered I had just watched a podcast. It was a celebrity one, and she owned a fashion brand, and the host had said to her, tell us about a bad day in your business. And she was like, oh, this one time I lost £55,000. Me and the host were like, what? And she was like, yeah, I wanted to open a shop in Dubai, and I went over to Dubai, put a few deposits down and things, but it fell through, and I just lost £55,000. And thinking back to that, I was like, April, you're going to be okay. Nobody died, you know.
It can have such an impact on even your though, I mean,
that's a fashion brand, and I'm a voiceover, so, and it's not intertwined at all, but you can find a way to relate to people. Another one was on your podcast. The guy, the talent agent, is it Lionheart? Lionheart. I wonder if you picked up on this, because you're an entertainer as well. It was said quite quickly, and I don't know if anyone picked up on it. You'd asked him, tell me about a stressful day, and he mentioned, you know, if the artist cancels. He said, I've sold 1,000 tickets and the artist cancels, and I've got all these people that have paid money to come. That makes me go like, oh. Because, you know, when I said before, when I was always looking for a job in the industry, I've often thought, when I was coming to the end of my dancing career, I've often thought, I could be an agent. I could sit in a bougie wee office, my laptop, a blazer on, and like say, right, you're at such and such hotel tonight. I could do that. I could never, hearing stories like that, stressful. I could never, that is stress. Everyone's got different things that stress them out. That guy didn't look overly stressed, but I've seen it myself. My husband used to run the big cabaret bars in Benidorm, and you know, these guys will phone you, they're meant to be on stage at 9 o'clock, and they'll phone you at 8 o'clock and go, voice is gone, mate, can't do it. And he's like, New Year's Eve, people have paid tickets, they've been looking forward to it.
I've only had to do it a handful of times, and I will only do it if I'm literally at the point of no return.
Door, the thing is, it's not always their fault. The reason they've left it that late is they're like, I was holding out, I was hoping I'd be able to do it, but I can't. So anyway, for example, that was something else I learned on a podcast. There's just different levels of stress, and whatever area of freelancing or self-employed you're on, you can kind of relate. I just think it's really good to listen to podcasts and get other people's perspective. People are so honest. It's great. I love how honest people are on things like this and tell you all their stories. Well,
that's kind of the main reason why we did this. It was to introduce to people, to obviously like the people behind the brand. I mean, that's the reason why it's called Behind the Brand, so people actually know who it is they're buying from. It's still a real life person at the end of the day. It's not just a company name or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So stuff like this exists because of reasons like that. And it's a good way of networking as well. And I mean, it's great to obviously meet people like yourself as well, and who do such amazing things, you know what I mean, and individual things as well. I don't think we've had a couple of repeat businesses and stuff like that, people doing the same thing, but when we get somebody like yourself on, it's amazing to hear like a different side of the story. No, listen, I love nothing more than recording and all that sort of stuff. And it was actually a point you just brought up there about, you were saying people having like sore throats and things like that. So that's something you've probably got to manage quite well. as I know as a singer, like I could have a day where I'm like, my throat is absolutely killing me. I'm like, how do you manage that? Obviously, I know everybody will be different, but how do you manage it?
No, that's right. I'm actually, touch wood, I'm fairly lucky. I've never had any massive dramas, but you know, a cold can hit you at any point, or a hay fever. And you know, that way, it would probably be fine. It's manageable. You take your medicine, you drink loads of honey and water, but I can hear it because I know the difference in my own voice. I'm like, and if it's a big job, you don't want to send it and it's not 100% right. It's stressful. I must say I'm quite lucky. I don't have any sort of throat problems. And I think singing's probably worse because you're singing for a full hour. Our jobs are short and you're not always screeching unless it was a video game or something and you're screeching. Normally it's a
the
nice
vocal
controlled.
cords definitely take a battering. I'll say that because there's times where especially if you're booked a gig on a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday. Like I've had weekends where it could be like that. Most of the stuff I do is at weekends. Because obviously everybody's off, parties, hotels, all that sort of stuff.
That's right.
So like, but I could, by the Sunday, I'm absolutely gubbed. Like
it's scary,
nothing.
Isn't it?
And I will do like the honey and some Manuka honey, all that type of stuff, and I'll try everything. And I'm like, and one thing that I was reading was like vocal zones and things like that. People are probably like, what the hell's a vocal zone? So those weird kind of black tablet things. And I'm like, even that just doesn't help. It just dries everything up in your throat. And I'm like, by the end
it's so scary. It was something I hadn't factored in. So I don't really do a lot of singing at all. Well, not now, obviously. But I'm trained in singing as well as I'm in dancing and acting. And one time I got a job in a Steps tribute.
Oh, amazing.
And I was so hoping that I would just be the one that didn't sing. I didn't sing a lot. I was there as the dancer, really. But what I hadn't factored, I was so worried about my singing voice being rubbish and not being a good singer. I hadn't factored in the throat care and Steps is obviously very dancey, so being out of breath and things like that. So all this time I was just panicking about how my actual singing voice was, but then you've got another level. You've got to look after your voice. You're out of breath because you're dancing, and it was just it was so stressful.
Because your voice is your tool at the end of the day.
Need it,
I mean? Like you'd need that to be able to do your work.
I know. So that was just an extra problem.
And I always try and tell people, I'm like, please take care of your voice. Because if you don't, you're going to lose it. If you don't, I find it difficult, but I'm like, I'll always try and make sure that my throat and things like that as well. Especially coming doing this sort of thing.
That's why I prefer this. All day
I prefer this to singing.
Do you?
Like, oh yeah.
You had enough of the singing now?
I've been doing it for now for like 11 years and stuff like that, and I've been pretty much everywhere that I've needed to be, and I'm like, it's now I prefer this. I prefer the actual actually having a chat with somebody because I can give my throat a bit of rest.
It's the late nights as well. Oh, brutal.
There's not a must, especially if you're up in Aberdeen and you're having to travel. If you're not staying over and you're travelling back.
That's right. No,
I've had nightmare stories travelling back up from like Blackpool and things like that, and it's no good. It's no good. Whereas this is remote. I can just stay where I am. You know what I mean? I don't need to move anywhere. So it's been absolutely a pleasure having you on
it's been
this
lovely.
year. Is there anything you would say to anybody, like a wee bit of inspiration for getting into voiceover?
Inspiration. Ooh. It's hard because I would encourage anyone to be self-employed because I just love it, but that's me, and I can't do that. There's certain people that love working for a company. For me, I just love, if there was one thing I would say is great, is just having your own time. Remote work, I would say, is the way forward because it's just a mental stress. It's a mental load off things that you don't need to worry about. You work in your own time. I would definitely consider it, especially for any parents and you're thinking, how am I going to juggle this? Think about, not everyone can be a voiceover artist, but think about what you can do. Are you great at art? Can you do graphics? Go and do a course if you have to. Do your research and find that thing that you can do. And if it suits you, I would definitely go along the line of freelance. I just love it. Love having all that time.
Totally agree with you. And we were actually discussing this, not here or anything like that, out with. We were saying that a lot of people now there's more people starting their own businesses and their own
I love it.
hustles.
I love all that.
I think in a time like we were talking about years and years ago, nobody would have did that. Everybody would have just worked for somebody and just went the whole time, whereas now people are finally taking the plunge and taking the leap to go and do what they love to do, which is amazing to see.
As well. Don't you think some people are just born like that? They're just like that entrepreneurial mind. I don't know if you've got time to tell your story.
Of course, go for it.
Funny story about an interview I went to. So at one point we did actually move back to Scotland. Me and my husband and the kids, we came over and tried out living here for a while. Looking back, I don't really know what I thought we were going to do for jobs. So he was running big cabaret bars and I was a dancer. Can confirm there's nothing like that in air. I don't know what I was going to do. So we tried. We ended up going back to Spain.
The race course, no.
Oh well.
Well, maybe.
They do their
did
party
a couple
nights.
of gigs, that's right. Aye.
Anyway, at one point, a job came up for Prestwick Airport, just on the front desk, checking people in, and I was like, I could do that. You know, I speak conversational Spanish, and as far as I know, they basically only fly to like Lanzarote, Alicante, Tenerife.
Quite a small airport, aye.
All Spanish places. I was like, oh, that could be good for me. So I've gone to this interview. Honest to God, by the end of it, I was nearly looking around for cameras. I thought I was being pranked. I've walked in, and the first thing you had to do was they actually gave you like a wee test before they would even see you. And I'm like, that's funny because I thought that said minimum wage. Who's the CEO of Ryanair? For minimum wage? Couldn't tell you. You tell me. Honestly, a list of about 20 questions.
Why would you need to know that?
Well, maybe you do need to know that if you work there, give me the job first. Yeah. Name 3 countries, not cities, countries that we fly to. I don't know. Is that not what I'm here for you to tell me? So go into the interview, and there's 2 men. I'm not like a mad feminist or anything, but these 2 men, and they were like making comments the whole way through, like going, they'd go, and I'm like, oh, is that a good or a bad and what is your why? What would you say is your like inspiration? I'm like, mainly putting food on the table.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I went on and on these crazy questions. I think the final nail in the coffin was they'd asked me all these questions. Oh no, that was it. Before they even asked me questions, they started off, so we'd like to tell you the positive parts of working here. First thing is free parking. Did you think I would pay to come to my work? Pay to park at your work? Free uniform.
Honestly, you don't realise Scotland's got so bad for that, haven't they?
I thought you were paying me to pay free uniform. Woo! So that was that. And then the very last part was this piece of paper, put it down and shoved it across to me. Which was really awkward because I had to sit and read it. They could have just told me the riddle. That's what it was, a riddle. So I'm sitting there trying to read it as quickly as possible. It's a paragraph like that. And I'm trying to think what it said. It was something along the lines of, you are escorting the disabled passengers to the plane. There's 3 disabled people and you only have 2 wheelchairs. You don't have a walkie-talkie and under no circumstances can you leave. What do you do? I'm like, I must have read that wrong. This is the point where I'm like looking for the cameras. What do you mean? So you can't leave? You've got no walkie-talkie. What do you do? Magic wand. I was just like,
just got to wait till somebody comes in the room then.
No idea.
Like,
anyway,
did they answer it? No.
Oh, I can't even remember. It's all a bit of a blur. I was just like, what is going on here? Anyway, needless to say, that day was the day that we decided to go back to Spain. I was like, we've tried every avenue here. I went home that day and I just got in bed. I was like, I give up. I've tried. What was that? I wish I could have filmed that interview. Anyway, not bashing. Obviously, not every company is like that, but that was the day that solidified for me. No, I was right enough. I always was meant to be self-employed. I won't be taking a job like that.
Sometimes you need to go through that to find that out, though.
And I'm not bashing anyone. Like, everyone's different. My husband, for example, is the complete opposite of me. He's always wanted to work for someone else. He wants to work for a company. He wants his wages coming in every month, so he knows we're taken care of. And we're just all different. So it's funny.
And does he encourage you to do what you do as well?
He loves what I do. He thinks it's brilliant that I can just stay at home and make that money. He's always like, oh, I want to do that.
If only could work from home for somebody else. I know. That's it. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
No, it's been great. Thank you.
So amazing to hear your story as well. And hopefully somebody listening is like, I'd love to connect with April and stuff like that. And obviously you can hear snippets of what April does on obviously your socials and things like that as well.
April GVO on all socials.
There you go. So if you're ever looking for a voiceover artist from Scotland as well, so it'll go perfectly with your content and things like that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. And guys, if you're listening, please make sure to leave us a like, subscribe, whatever platform, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you again in the next one.